So I think that there's an aspect of our society that goes unnoticed a lot by almost everybody. And I'm talking particularly about kind of the Western approaches to food and then how advertisement affects how we eat. I think a lot of what we eat isn't actually food, it's food like substances, right? We're eating extremely processed things. I think in our advertising culture, we have normalized unhealthy eating to the point that we often don't even know that we are participating in the destruction of our own bodies, really. Whether you're talking spiritually or physically, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. If you're eating a lot of these bad, unhealthy foods on a regular basis, you are destroying yourself. And it's gotten to the point that a lot of us don't even know that that's what we're doing. And sometimes we even eat or drink things that we think are healthy because that's how we've been taught because of particular health initiatives that maybe have been backed by certain companies that want us to be eating certain things. And, I think gluttony, in terms of being one of these classic 7 deadly sins kind of thing, in our society today is a bit of a forgotten sin in that not only are we eating unhealthily, we're eating too much, right? And that's normalized. Right? We're taught to crave. We are shown people who are enjoying and having a great time at the local fast food place. And not even fast food. You go to a grocery store, almost everything you get in a grocery store is unhealthy for you.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes even the health products are bad for you, right? So this is something that's been on my mind recently, Father Geoffrey. So I wanted to get your take. Would you consider gluttony a forgotten sin in today's society?
Yeah, I think the way of thinking about it being forgotten is that, if you're on a very, very high plateau, you don't notice you're on a mountain. Because the only way you can notice you're on a mountain is because there are valleys and there are, peaks, right? And that you're on a peak and you're not in a valley. So you can be on one of the highest places on earth, like Tibet, and not notice you're actually really high up because it's a plateau. And I think what's happened in our society is that the baseline of what you might consider, gluttonous has shifted, because I think most people would say, well, gluttony is bad, and they would think of kind of binge eating or eating to excess. Maybe they think of Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, something like that, or for Orthodox Christians at Pascha. Sometimes the number of heart attacks in Greece is extraordinary, and the days after Pascha. But because they're thinking of, that excess in relation to what they would normally eat. But actually, gluttony, like the other deadly sins, so-called, is about habits, right? And habits are about the things you don't even notice that you do most of the time. So as a society, our baseline has shifted. And so we are, as you say, just generally gluttonous because we eat to excess normally. And then, the peaks are on top of that. So what we need to do is really recalibrate the whole system. And there's so many directions we could take this, and it would take a long time to do so. But the bottom line is simply this: learn to eat fresh, good food as close as farm to table as you can, and learn to cook. You will therefore avoid almost every aisle in the grocery store, as you say. And the grocery stores are actually really well set up for this. So if you think of only shop around the margins of the grocery store. So you got your vegetables and your fruits over here. You've got your fresh meats and fishes over there. You've got your dairy products over there. Avoid all those middle aisles, because every step of processing takes you away from the actual proper food. And here's the irony of this whole thing, actually. What you can learn to do is actually love food more, appreciate food more, not less. So this is the mistake, and maybe the forgottenness of gluttony as well, is that people think of it as, well, it's having too close an attachment to food somehow. But that's not actually the thing. The more you actually learn to love food and shop well and go to farmers markets and deal directly as closely with the people who are producing this food from the goodness of the earth and God's mercy and grace on creation, and the more you kind of know how to do good things with that and enjoy the process, the preparation of food and the serving and the hospitality connected with that. I lived for a few years in France, and the thing about France, which is remarkable, and it's this great paradox the world over, the people wonder how the French can eat what they do and stay so trim and healthy and so forth. Well, it's because they don't eat all the processed foods. They eat the very best of meat, because every butcher is a craftsman, and the farmers that raise that meat are craftsmen, and they take it very, very seriously. And they talk about, every hilltop, there's a new terroir, a new territory with very different properties. And you want to try the cheese from over there because it's very different from the cheese here, even though we use the same steps, but because of the air and the soil and the caves in which it's treated and so forth. And it's a fascinating obsession with food in a way that you might think, well, isn't that gluttony? It's not. All it is taking it seriously and lovingly. And therefore you take, it's much more slow in both the whole raising of it, the preparation of it, and then the serving of it. Meals last a long time, and it's always served with the very best of wines and so forth. But it's not gluttonous. It's not gluttonous because it's a care and a consideration and a seriousness of it. And in that context, the kind of rhythm of fasting and feasting of the Orthodox Church makes so much more sense, because all of it is about how to appreciate our bodies and what goes into them, and how we treat ourselves and one another. I mean, the really great sin and forgottenness here is that we've lost all of that. We grab and scarf down, quick meals here and there, often at our desks or, in transit from one place to another. We don't take the time. In France, even the construction workers on work sites will take a 3-hour lunch, and they'll go and they'll find the nearest auberge or inn or whatever, and they'll find really good food, and they'll take a lot of time over that. It's just a thing that is completely absent here. And somehow I think this is about learning to love food more, not less. And if we do that, we'll be less gluttonous. And it's a great paradox, and it's very ironic, but I think this is ultimately the thing. If we take our fasting and our feasting seriously, and it was St. Macarius the Great, I think, in the early church, who said, Christianity is food and drink. Remarkable, right? Because he's talking about the goodness of creation and taking that seriously, taking our bodies seriously. And you will never shop those processed food aisles again. And all of those things, which you quite rightly say, are designed to make us desire more. So they're salty, they're sugary, they contain all the wrong things. And it doesn't matter what health label they put on them. The great fad of the 70s and 80s was get rid of fat. So everything became fat free, but it was still full of all kinds of things that made us fat, and it didn't make any sense at all. So just go. Forget everything you've ever heard. Just go and eat fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, good meat, good fish, good products that are from people who've taken the care over it. Learn to lovingly prepare it and serve that to your families, and all will be well. And the fasting and the feasting of the church will make sense.
Therefore all the world glorifies you.